Hi, my name is Jonathan Roth. This is Geopolitical Futures Video. I'm joined from Austin, Texas by George Friedman, the chairman of Geopolitical Futures. George, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
George, there are some very interesting things happening in Eastern Europe right now. President Donald Trump is in the region, and some things are happening between some of these Eastern European countries that you predicted quite a long time ago. Why don't you fill us in?
Well, there's a concept called the intermarium, which means between the seas. It's beneath the Baltic and the Black Sea. And what I argued was that this alliance, which was originally thought of by a Pole called Pilsudski, who was really the father of modern Poland, that in order to protect this area, there has to be an alliance stretching from the Baltics through Poland, through Hungary to Romania. And at that point, no one saw a threat from Russia, and at that point, no one really thought this was going to happen. Well, at this point, it's become kind of national policy of the Polish government. The Romanian government has joined with them. And today we heard that the Hungarians, for the first time, are joining a military exercise on the Black Sea with the Romanians. So what we're seeing is this intermarium, this alliance stretching from the two seas, taking shape. And it kind of changes the way Europe works.
So I think this begs the question then, is this inside or outside of NATO?
Technically, parts of it are inside of NATO. But as a practical matter, the only government outside the region who's providing serious support for this is the United States. The United States has wanted to block the Russians, whether they attack or not. They saw these people as allies. The rest of the Europeans are more wary. They're wary of the American presence. They're wary of the reignition of the Cold War. They're wary that this has nothing to do with them. So really, it's outside of NATO in every practical sense. It is the United States sending troops, sending equipment, selling equipment to these countries, training them, doing all sorts of things to create this buffer between Europe and the Russians.
So Germany has been leading Europe for many years now. Germany and the U.S. seems to be diverging on quite a few things right now. Where does this put the relationship between the U.S. and Germany, and how does this relate to even Germany's relationship with Poland and Hungary and Romania and these countries in that region?
Well, a lot of people will say that this has to do with the personal friction between Trump and Merkel, but the divergence has really been taking place since the Bush administration. The American perception of the world is that there are many crises that the U.S. faces at this moment in Korea, in the Middle East, also possibly in Eastern Europe. The German perception is much narrower. They're worried about the EU, the free trade zone, and local issues. The Americans are constantly trying to draw NATO outside of its immediate area. The Germans want to keep it in there. The Americans are concerned about military things. The Germans are primarily concerned about economic things. So there's a huge divergence between these two countries from where they were during the Cold War and today. And therefore, you're seeing personal squabbles. Trump and Merkel, they really don't like each other, apparently. But you're seeing personal squabbles, and they really reflect much deeper divergences.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's flip over now. Last question for you. Let's take a look at it from Moscow's perspective. How do they view this development?
Well, if you asked that question before the price of oil plunged, they would regard it as extremely threatening and something they have to respond to. And it might have been more dangerous. But with the price of oil below $50 a barrel, and this is the primary source of income for the Russian Federation, he has much deeper worries. At this point, having lost Ukraine, his forces are hundreds of miles away from the Romanian border, much closer to the Polish border, but still on a very narrow front. Their focus right now is on trying to stabilize their economy, and the last thing on their mind is war. But given what happened in 2014, given Ukraine, they set in motion things they didn't expect. One of them is this. They're responding with various destabilization efforts that appear to be very powerful and mighty, but in fact, it doesn't do all that much. It doesn't change real power. So what the Russians are doing here is kind of like the Germans, focusing on their own thing and watching the Americans around the world flex their muscles.
Well, George Friedman, thank you so much for your time and insights. Appreciate it.
Take care.